June 2003. Absolutely nothing to say about what was going on in my life, so we're going to jump right into the books. And the first book from June of 2003 was Witchblade Demons by Mike Barron. Witchblade was a comic book about a Sarah Pazzini, a cop in New York City who got the Witchblade, which is a gauntlet that makes her a living weapon kind of thing. Also makes her clothes really skimpy because it was that era, that kind of comic. But in this book, there's an antiques dealer who is decapitated. Sarah Pazzini and her partner are investigating, and excuse me, uh, there's going to be some supernatural shenanigans. Didn't read the comic, like reading comic book novels, and Mike Barron, being the author of this, he was a comic book creator that I was a big fan of. He was co-creator of Nexus with Steve Rude, the artist, who you can see right up there. That's Nexus right there, that guy. And I have a couple other Steve Rude pictures somewhere. But yeah, so big fan of Nexus. Also created a character called the Badger, who was it was a great independent comic book, and he's apparently written a bunch of novels, other novels like horror novels and action novels that I'm going to check out in the future. But part of reading this was because it was a comic book novel. Big part of it was that it was written by Mike Barron. And looking it up on Amazon, they have the wrong author's name. They have a Michael Barron, which I believe the Baron is even spelled differently. He's an author of a bunch of political books, not the Mike Barron that actually wrote this book. Anyway, that's Witchblade Demons by Mike Barron. Next up, we have Dating Secrets of the Dead by David Prill. Ignore that noise, but I'll repeat myself in case you couldn't hear clearly. Dating Secrets of the Dead by David Prill. This is a book with two short stories and a novella. So we have Dating Secrets of the Dead, which is about two teenage zombies in love, and the obstacles they face as zombies. And then there's Carnivore, Carnyvore. I think I have that right. Which is about a traveling carnival and this town that has banned them, and so the carnival folk want to take revenge on the town. And then the novella is the last horror show, which is being told by this guy who loved this traveling carnival when he was a kid. Every time it would come to town, but every year it just got, it got worse. It got more sad, and so he's reminiscing about his love of the carnival and how the changes in the carnival, how the slow not degradation, but the slow falling apart of the carnival uh, affected him. So, Dating Secrets of the Dead, David Prill. I actually added this to my wish list because there's a relatively inexpensive copy, and seems like something I might want to read again. Next up, The 10th Justice by Brad Meltzer, a legal thriller. Our main character is Ben Addison. He is a Supreme Court clerk. He accidentally shares something that he shouldn't with someone he shouldn't be sharing it with, excuse me, and they start blackmailing him. And so, to save his career and save the government, perhaps, he and his roommates and a fellow clerk have to figure out how to put a stop to this. Love Brad Meltzer's legal thrillers. I thought this was a fantastic book. The 10th Justice, Brad Meltzer. It was inevitable. Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel, Monster Island by Christopher Golden and Thomas E. Snigoski. and uh, crossover. So this does take place uh, during Angel having his own spin-off show, and Buffy. I think it takes place somewhere in season 6, but don't hold me to that. Anyway, in on Angel, uh, in the first half of the first season, one of the characters was a half demon named Doyle. For those of you who don't know, Doyle was a half demon. He would have these visions, and that's what. And then he would tell Angel, and that's sort of the case that Angel would take. It was the powers that be would give Doyle the visions. He'd pass them on to Angel to help save the world. And Doyle sacrificed himself to save Angel and save a bunch of half breed demons. So in this, someone is killing half breed demons. Some craziness going on in Los Angeles, where Angel is. More craziness going on in Sunnydale, where Buffy and the Scooby Gang are. It's all going to come together. There's a surprise villain. I'm not going to say who it is, in case anybody who hasn't read it would like to read it. A nice tribute to Doyle, and a I mean, if you really want to dig into it, it's getting into prejudice and things, racism, that kind of stuff. Um, but Christopher Golden, good writer. Thomas E. Snigoski. I don't know how you pronounce his name. Both good writers. I'm a fan of both Buffy and Angel. I'm pretty sure everybody who watches these videos knows that by now. So, good stuff. After that, okay, look, we got a bunch of media tie-ins here in a row. And next up is CSI Cold Burn by Max Allan Collins. criminal scene investigators, whatever the CSI stands for. Well, in this story, Gil Grissom, the main character from CSI, it's an ensemble show, or it was an ensemble show, but he was the guy in charge. He and one of his team go to a forensics convention. Of course, there's going to be a murder there, or at least some big crime, and he's going to have to investigate. Meanwhile, back in LA, the rest of his team are dealing with their own crime. So basically, you have two mysteries going on at the same time. It's all going to be solved by forensic science. I enjoyed the show for a while. I like Max Allan Collins' writing, so not a bad book. Then we have The Books of Magic, Bindings by Carla Jablonski. This is a novelization of the comic book, The Books of Magic, which was created by Neil Gaiman. I don't think he was writing the ongoing series. I'm not 100% sure. He wrote the original miniseries that introduced the main character, Timothy Hunter, who, now I don't want you to get him confused with a different character you may have heard of. Timothy Hunter is I believe he's a 13-year-old British lad with glasses and an owl who's going to be the greatest sorcerer in the DC universe. But in this book, there's a character named Tamlin who comes to Timothy Hunter wanting his help in saving the realm of fairy. But things aren't always what they seem. It's a young adult book that's a novelization of a comic book, but I dig the Books of Magic. Again, it's a comic book novel, and they have great covers. They're fun books. Books of Magic, Bindings by Carla Jablonski. Then we have Columbo, The Hoover Files by William Harrington. And so there's this woman who is a biographer, sort of a reporter, expose, biographer type person. She's writing something about J. Edgar Hoover. Gets access to the Hoover files, which could blow certain things wide open. And, of course, she's murdered. We know right at the beginning who did it. It's all about Columbo breaking down the case, breaking down the suspects until he can snatch them up and arrest them. Huge fan of the series Columbo. Can't really call it a TV show. It's a series of movies. Always loved the character of Columbo. Happy to read these mystery. Well, what do they call it? Not whodunits. They're called. It's weird, but how catchums is what the Columbo type stories are called. Because again, we know who did it at the very beginning. It's all a matter of how is Columbo going to catch him. I like them. I like Columbo. Columbo, the Hoover Files, William Harrington. After that, we have Still Life with Crows by Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child. This is the fourth Pendergast novel. It's not the fourth novel that Preston and Child wrote, but it is the fourth novel featuring Agent Pendergast, a fantastic character first introduced in Relic. In this one, Pendergast has gone to a small Kansas town where there's either a very human serial killer or an ancient curse. I have read only a tiny fraction of all of the Pendergast novels, but of the ones that I have read, this is my favorite. I don't know why. There was just something about it that that kind of hit me. Maybe the whole idea of the potential curse. But I really need to finish reading all the Pendergast books because he is such a great character. There was supposed to be a TV series that doesn't seem to be happening, but I can't recommend the early Douglas and Preston stuff. Like there's the standalone novels, as well as anything in the Pendergast series. Once they get into the Dan Brownish type stuff, Da Vinci Code type stuff, I mean, it's still well written and fun, but it's just not for me. But anyway, Still Life with Crows, Douglas Preston, and Lincoln Child. All right, now we're going to get into a trilogy with Trilogy of the Fallen, Book 1, Ashes and Angel's Wings by Greg Stolze, or Stolze, Stolze. This is part of White Wolf Publishing's World of Darkness, based on the game, I had to write it down, Demon the Fallen. So in the game, it's a role-playing game. I believe I have all of this information correct. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But you're in the game, you're going to pick the type of fallen that you are. Just as in, Dungeons and Dragons, you pick your race and your class and all of that stuff. In World of Darkness, Vampire the Masquerade, you would pick the type of vampire you are. It's tribes in werewolf. I'm trying to think of what the groups are called in vampire, but my brain's not working correctly. Anyway, you pick the group that you're going to belong to, and it sort of dictates how you're going to play the game, what type of personality you're going to have. So anyway, this is demons that have ended up on Earth in human bodies. So in this particular story, the demon's name is Hazmed. He has entered the body of a guy named Harvey Ciulo. Again, pronunciations, who knows? But Harvey is just a low-level bag man for the New Jersey mob. But now with Hazmed inside him, he's going to claw his way to the top of the New Jersey mob. But Harvey has a daughter, and Hazmed may care for her. And, is that the road to redemption for a fallen? If he cares for and takes care of a human? Who knows? You'd have to read the book to find out. But that's Trilogy of the Fallen, Book 1, Ashes and Angel's Wings by Greg Stolze. That's what I'm going with. I followed that up with Trilogy, trying to talk too fast. Trilogy of the Fallen, Book 2, The Seven Deadlies by Greg Stolze. In this, our fallen, our demon who has come to Earth, is Gaviel, and he is in the body of Noah Wallace, who is the son, the heir apparent to this huge evangelical church, I believe it is. Um, and so he sort of sees it as a way of, you know, being very demonic, messing around with the church, sort of a bad guy on the inside. But there's another demon that wants to recruit Gaviel, however you say his name. But there's also an angel that's trying to take him out. And again, lots of human temptations that could lead him to being less demonic. Who knows? You'd have to read the book to find out. And of course, I followed that up with Trilogy of the Fallen, Book 3, The Wreckage of Paradise by Greg Stolze. And in this, we have Sabriel, who it turns out she's a demon. She's one of the fallen. And she has been the one manipulating both Hazmed and Gaviel. She's been the sort of overlord of what's going on in the other two novels. But now there's this a fallen who basically wants to end all of existence. And so Sabriel is going to have to team up with Hazmed, Gaviel, maybe some angels, who knows, to try and save all of existence. Brings everything to a head. So that's Trilogy of the Fallen, Book 3, The Wreckage of Paradise, Greg Stolze. I love the concepts. I'm intrigued. This is something that I would maybe, if I could find them at a reasonable price, maybe pick up and read again. Don't remember anything about the writing style, but the ideas I find very interesting. And then, almost falling in line with that, by the way, the Trilogy of the Fallen, Book 3 was the penultimate book for June of 2003. The last book of June 2003 is The Gathering Dark by Christopher Golden. This is part of his series that I don't remember the name of. Actually, I may be able to. Yes, The Shadow Saga, because I still have it up on Amazon. The main character in The Shadow Saga is Peter Octavian. Amazon says this is book 4 of 5. I thought there were more than 5 books in the series. But that's neither here nor there. I really love the first 3 books, the main trilogy, for their take on vampire lore and sort of the progression of things in those 3 books. Well, in this one, so in these books, we have found out spoilers for the first book. So go read the first book if you don't want it spoiled, or skip the next minute or so. But essentially, we learned that the Vatican had this book that basically allowed them to control certain supernatural things, and vampires had essentially been brainwashed into into weaknesses, having weaknesses, and limited powers. And by the end of the first book, the vampires have broken this control. So then there's some progression in this book now. People know that the supernatural exists in the world, and some other things that I don't want to say that are really spoilery. But now, like, literal hell creatures are coming to Earth. And so Peter Octavian and some other supernatural characters are fighting to save the Earth from supernatural hell creatures. I will say, as much as I love the first 3 books, and I could tell you a lot of this has just been off the top of my head, so I may have some of it wrong, but I could tell you a bit about each of the 3 books. I think really give you an idea of what those first 3 books are. I absolutely had to look up what this one was about. So it didn't stick with me the way the first 3 books did. I don't know if I ever finished the series, and if there are more than 5 books, then I know I haven't finished the series. I do think there's some other stuff though, but it's still good stuff. Peter Octavian's an interesting character. Christopher Golden does very well in progressing things throughout the stories. I really love the progression in those first 3 books. Just don't remember the exact progression as it moves forward into this 4th book. But The Gathering Dark by Christopher Golden. The last book I read in June of 2003. All right, and question for this video once again, did not think ahead. Excuse me. um, Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child. I don't remember if I've ever asked anything about these guys before. Have you read any of their books? If so, what do you think? Do you prefer their standalone novels? Do you prefer their Pendergast novels? Do you prefer the newer stuff with whatever the Delta Group or whatever it is that's on the Da Vinci Code type adventures? Um, or have you read some of their stuff and didn't like it? Let's talk Preston and Child. I read The Relic, which is their first book together. That's the first book of theirs I read. It was recommended to me by a friend of mine, and I absolutely loved it. And so I started picking up everything that they were putting out, and I've read The Relic multiple times. The sequel, The Reliquary, I believe I've read a couple of times. I know I've read it at least once, but I think I've read it a couple of times. Their standalone stuff is usually really, really fun. I mean, there's levels to it. Some I like better than others. But as I said before, Pendergast is such a great character. He's an FBI agent, very reminiscent to me, at least, of Sherlock Holmes. Simply that sort of very rough around the edges kind of character, but also incredibly intelligent. Um, and the stories that he's in, they some some I was gonna say some are completely like real world type mysteries or thrills, where some definitely go into the either supernatural or scientific horror. Because like Relic has a monster in it, but it's a scientific monster, if that makes sense. For those of you who haven't seen it, I'm not talking like a Frankenstein monster, but like the creature in Relic has a scientific basis. And again, really enjoy that. Can't believe the best character in the book was completely left out of the movie, but the movie's still okay. So yes, I'm a fan of Pendergast, of Preston and Child. I love Agent Pendergast, and I really need to. It's been ages since I've read any of their stuff. I need to fit it in. You know, you all know how much I have so much to read. Uh, but yeah, I should try to fit some more of their work in. But what about you? Let me know all your thoughts on Preston and Child and Pendergast or not Pendergast. Let me know in the comments below. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put those in the comments below. Comments are open for spoilers. Just post a spoiler warning. Try to be polite here. Excuse me. On my channel. Please like, share, and subscribe. All the usual YouTube stuff. And if you'd care to follow me on other social media, my Twitter is at Ronin5757. My Instagram, where I post pictures of books, comic books, board games, and fuzzy animals, is Eric Smith 5757. That's Eric with a K, ERIKSMITH 5757. On Blue Sky, I am at EL Smith. That's all I have for you this week, so until next week, read more books.